Welcome back. Welcome back to another episode of the Bench Mob Ent Podcast, the best sports podcast in New Jersey. For those that's watching, you see we got a special guest. For those that's listening, we have a special guest. But before I get into that, let's follow some rules, some house rules we need to take care of. Follow, like, share, subscribe, share, and tell any and everybody about this podcast. We're trying to be here for a good time and a long time. The person that I have on today, you've seen him, I'm sure, somewhere. This man covers sports journalist. He covers everything. And when I say everything, I mean everything. UFC fights, boxing fights. And when I'm talking about boxing, I ain't talking about the regular old dudes. I'm talking about Javante Davis, Shakur Stevens, and he's covered those fights, man. NBA, NFL, Rutgers sports, men's and women's. Has his own site, the creator of Sh3GotGame, which is making sure that they show love and push out information and content for women killing it in sports. And if you by any chance don't know who I'm talking about after that intro, I'm talking about none other than John Armwood. How are you doing?
My brother, man. My brother, that might be up there. That might be up there, one of the best interests I've ever had, brother. I appreciate that, man. I appreciate the kind words, big dog. And,
of course.
I'm doing well, man. It's a privilege to be up here, We met at Rutgers, and ever since we've met, I've been following, and you guys have been taking off. I know it's you and your team out there. And look, I gotta agree with you. Definitely one of the, if people don't know, definitely one of the best podcasts in Jersey, hands down, no doubt. No doubt.
Much appreciated. And like I said, man, that the resume is long. And he's interviewed even people in hip hop, the likes of Fab, the likes of Dave East. He's talked to Scoop B, Rakia Jackson recently. With these situations, right? You are in these rooms with some of the premier people in journalism, and you're talking to some of the premier people in entertainment and sports. Do you ever go through nerves? Do you ever have to pinch yourself like, yo, I'm talking to Dave East, yo, I'm talking to Rakia Jackson?
Yeah, no, man. It happens more than I guess people think. It's just a matter of the best way I like to explain it, if you played sports, whether it was basketball, football, whatever sport, usually you have the butterflies to that first big play. For football, I know the big thing was always kickoff. You got the butterflies, and after you get that first hit out, oh, you're good to go. You're ready to go. You bounce back. After you make that first shot, you start getting in your groove. So it's more so a little bit of that, just kind of having the confidence, just kind of believing in yourself, believing in your work. It's almost like an athlete, you know what I mean? When you're in there putting 1,000 shots up a day, at some point you got to believe that thing's going to fall down or it never will, just that confidence from overtime, that repetition, that consistency. But I'm not gonna say that a lot. I've definitely fanboyed a few times. I've been in the rooms with some people and just been like, I can't believe I watched this guy growing up. I used to listen to this, this person growing up, or I've seen this person develop into the player they are now. So I've had some really cool moments, some real humbling moments in my time. But look, man, it's always an honor to be in those rooms. It's always a privilege to be around greatness, and man, I like to say I'm blessed, bro. I like to say I'm blessed.
Most definitely. And with you being in that field, when did you know that you actually wanted to be a sports journalist?
Believe it or not, I didn't when I first started out, man. I was an athlete. I was an athlete like most people, and I suffered a really bad injury. I suffered a third-degree hamstring tear, and I was forced. When I went to the team doctor, I was forced. They told me either you're gonna have surgery and you sit out for a season, or you possibly can play, but you may never walk again if it's hurt again. And I kind of was tough. It wasn't really great choices either way, so I was forced to kind of walk away from the game. And I knew I still had all that energy and all that passion left, and I kind of figured out different ways to kind of still be a part of the game and give back to the game in a way if I knew I couldn't obviously either make the league or play at a high level any longer. And believe it or not, my first original outlet, I was trying to get into sports radio. I was really trying to get into radio, TV. I'm on air a lot and stuff as well, but like that's what I was really trying to get into growing up. Everyone always told me you got a really good radio voice, like you got the deep voice, you know, boo 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 boo. I can imagine you on this, and so I kind of took it. I kind of took it and ran with it. I wanted to try it. I was invited on a few different radio shows, and things went well. So for a while, that's what I was technically pursuing. But through the pandemic, it kind of took away a lot of those opportunities because sports wasn't live anymore. So it was kind of like your cast calling from the TV. It's not the same. It's delayed and stuff like it's just not it wasn't the same. So I kind of ventured into the journalism aspect where I was forced to write. I was forced to write and I was forced to get better at my craft in that way. And that's how I've over time gained a passion. I just began enjoying, loving telling people stories. Originally, I just like calling the game and kind of being part of the game, bringing a different energy. That shifted after a while. Being able to understand and really tell people stories that spoke to me personally, and that really was able to take me to the next edge, and it just forced me to hone in on my craft, and that's how I'm here today.
We both have that similar passion of telling people stories, and
For sure.
we get great joy out of that. And to hear though that, I mean, it wasn't what you wanted, but it obviously was a blessing in disguise because I'm gonna keep harping on it. One of the best in the business, and more importantly, that solid dude. Like for those that's watching, at some point throughout this episode, you gonna get some free game. One of the few people that shared free game with me, so forever appreciate that for sure. Before getting into the career though, once you transition into the writing aspect,
Yeah.
what is something that you wish you knew before you got into sports journalism?
Believe it or not, some of the things I was able to tell you or talk to you about, behind closed doors is, I kind of got thrown into it without a mentor. I want to say my first probably 2 years, I was figuring this thing out on my own. I had to figure out the do's and don'ts. I had to figure out how to utilize my social media to do this. Like I didn't really, and I was even when I was in certain rooms, I can honestly say I wasn't prepared to be, at the time. And some of the things I know now and how to move and how to go about things and how to even email, even the art of emailing, reaching out and kind of seeking out information. Things it's just very small details. To be successful in this business is never the name. It's never the big things that you see that the glitz and glamour. It's all in the small details. It's your relationships. It's how you relate to people. It's how you speak to people. It's how people think of you. It's how the players think of you. Like it's a lot of small details within this that makes you successful. And I wish heading into it, someone possibly told me that, but also the realness of this job and the realness of this profession, the hard work and dedication it takes to be even remotely close to be successful. It's not for the weak, and you got to be willing to sacrifice a lot to really grow in this space.
I think I got the title of the episode right there. That's what I was looking down. I was making sure I wrote it down so I ain't forget. It's all in the details. That's the title of the
Absolutely.
episode. A lot was said in that answer right there that I could navigate on multiple ways. I want to start off with the part that you mentioned in regards of the navigation of figuring things out, even the art of email. How do you navigate the politics side of it? I'm very, very, very new in that space and being around in the covering the sports and the press room. But
Yeah,
I saw firsthand some of the politics that goes on.
yeah.
How do you navigate the politics in the business?
I mean, man, look, listen. It's like anything else. There's always a good boy club. There's always a good boy, good girl club. However, it's just a matter of I think who you are as a person. That's always going to speak. It's the integrity. It's the quality of work. Sometimes I've seen people who aren't the most liked or they're not the most friendliest people. However, they're undeniable because their work is that great. You know, so there's a lot of layers and stuff involved in that. However, I always suggest just be yourself, be who you are and who got you here and why you're here. And then one of the biggest things that I always told myself is while I did have imposter syndrome while I was beginning, I was in these rooms for a reason. You know, they didn't just credential me or they didn't just allow just a Joe Schmo in the room to have them in the room. You know, and stuff like that kind of helped me surpass the politics because there is a ton of politics in this business, but just like anything else, it's politics and everything, right? It's just a matter of making the right connections. Like I said, being supporting people that support you. That's probably one of the toughest aspects to really understand. You know, a lot of people are nice. A lot of people smile in this industry. However, it's really who supports you. When you drop that article or you drop that interview, who's throwing you up on their posts? Who's commenting for reach? Who's doing things behind closed doors? Who's speaking about you highly to get you on someone's radar? You know, those stuff matter, man. And I think like anything else, man, you got to show love to get love. You know, and it always comes back around. But I think personally, as long as you're moving the right way, and you're moving with integrity, you're moving with a form of poise. You know, a form of poise. You got to be patient in this business as well. You know, I think it goes a long way. It speaks to your character. Your character will speak louder than you ever could. You know, that's how I was raised. That's how I really came up. So I think just being a good person and looking out and just kind of doing the right things when no one's looking, I think those matter and that goes a long way for sure.
I mean, for those that's listening and watching, it's just gems being dropped. Just if will you pick them up is up to you. It was a lot said in that right there too, just in the aspect of understanding that hey, yes, I want to be successful in this business. Yes, I want to grow in this business, but not losing who you are, not losing character, not losing integrity. A lot of people, which you kind of alluded to, kind of forget that part. It's just like, hey, how can I move up in the ranks? I don't care how I treat people. I don't care how I talk to people. And it shows. But like you said, if the work is good for some people, it actually works in their favor. You mentioned a couple questions ago about the aspect of success for you. How do you view success? How do you measure success in this business for you?
Oh, I'm sorry, I lost you just for a sec.
For you, how do you view success? How do you measure success in this business?
That's a good question. That's a good question. Believe it or not, I personally view success on how your peers view you or how you're respected in your space. I think like anything else, it's a lot of glitz and glamour in anything. Um, yes, because you get big interviews. Yes, because you're on TV. Yes, because you're whatever. Doesn't mean you're respected in your field. Doesn't mean you're doing things the right way. Doesn't mean the players respect you. You know, sometimes the players, because of your organization, is forced to speak to you, or um, you know, certain things. Like there's little things I think where the respect of others for you speaks way louder, and that's how I measure success. One of my closest mentors and one of my good friends, Scoop B, is different. You know, when he walks into a room, it outside obviously the name rings bells, but outside his name, he gets mutual respect from the vets, from young reporters, from reporters his age, reporters that's been doing it as much as he has, and it brings an aura and it brings like a real different energy where like okay, he's not only good at what he does, but people really truly respect his work. And just to drop him in there, but regardless, I aspire to be that way as well, and I'm glad some of the work is speaking for itself, and it's finally being recognized to some degree. But that's really the goal, man. I want to be respected by my peers, whether it's the generation coming up, my generation that's in here grinding with me now, and more importantly, the older guys, the guys who paved the way for us. So um, that's really, I think, the respect of your peers, respect of your audience. I think a lot of those things matter for sure.
That's still the mentality of the athlete, because most athletes will tell you, my peers respect me, I'm good. The fans may not,
Yep.
the voters may not, but the people that's grinding with me know the work, know what I put in, know how much time it took to get to where I'm at. So that's completely facts with that. And you mentioned obviously that you were an athlete and you got injured. When it comes to your writing, do you feel being an athlete before that actually is an advantage when it comes to your writing and covering sports?
I definitely think it played a huge part in my writing early on, and I think it guided my writing and it helped my writing, just from a passion aspect. Right, a lot of people don't always understand the super jargon, the 6 syllable words, and sometimes you don't have to go to the upper room, or do the most for someone to simply understand. Hey, he threw the ball in double coverage and the way he fit the ball and like, or whatever the case is, how I would describe it. Sometimes you want to be the more relatable. And I think earlier in my writing, that's kind of what helped me um, gain my relatability. However, I do think as I grew as a writer, that's when I began to hone and kind of be able to mix both. But I do think it plays a part. Like, I think it's a different perspective, but I do think and respect the perspective of the media as well. Sometimes you got to take yourself out of a player's perspective because sometimes it's so tunnel vision. Like, you'll understand why he took that tech because that was out of passion and that was out of whatever the case is. But you didn't see, or maybe you're not taking into account, he took that tech with, I don't know, 3 seconds left in the game, and they're down by one, and now these guys are shooting free throws to extend the lead. So was it really a smart tech? Was it really the best move? I understand it as a player, but on the media side and just taking that outside view, I think has also helped my writing as well. So um, I definitely believe if you are an athlete and you're privileged to have an athletic background, I would say utilize that 100% in your voice. Whether you're speaking about the game or writing, the goal is to always use whatever you can utilize to be you. Part of being you is embracing who you are. You know what I'm saying? So, and part of embracing who you are is understanding, your past experiences and using all those in your writing, in your day to day speech. All those things matter. All those things help with you being a successful either journalist or writer for sure.
Do you agree, staying in that same vein, do you agree with some athletes that say that the coverage of sports and the writing on some of these players and these teams has become too toxic and has become too negative?
Yeah, I I more so agree than disagree, but the reality of the aspect is there are outlets. That's what they look for. There's an outlet. For example, I'm not trying to shun anyone. I know people over there. I have writer friends that work in that field. But I mean, there is a TMZ Sports, right? Like, that's a real thing. It's not just TMZ. It's TMZ Sports, and all they're looking for is the gotcha moment. That's really what they're made to do, right? And there's plenty out there. It's not just TMZ. I'm not trying to single anyone out, but regardless, I feel like a lot of people fall into that. They're looking for the gotcha. They're looking for the headlines, the clicks, and I think some of that, because that is part of it. And part of being a journalist, or part of being a successful journalist, is people. You want people to see your work. So sometimes, unfortunately, you do have to play a headline game. You do have to play certain things, but with that said, I think it takes away from the art of media and it takes away from the respect from your player. Because at some point they don't trust you. It loses that trust where it just feels like you're trying to get them, and you're out there not really trying to tell their story and not give them a voice. So um, I understand it. Let's put it that way. I understand it. I do stand with the media. I can say I'm part of the media that's trying to change that. And I can say that proudly. So that doesn't when I hear it, it doesn't bother me. It doesn't apply to me. However, there's a lot of people still on TV right now. There's a lot of publications out there. That's all they're looking to do because that's what they want. They want the clicks. They want the views. Because why? It brings in revenue, and I get that side too. But I think it takes away from the preciousness of media, and I think at the end of the day, I think it's ruining the players and media relationship. And without the players, let's be clear, I don't know if there is any media. So, you can't really have your cake and eat it too. And sometimes the players I'm gonna say it. I think sometimes the players are too sensitive. I'm sorry if you're a player and you do something really negative. You know, if you're a player and you go out there and smack someone on the opposing team, I mean, my man, I can't slide that under the rug. Like it has to be talked about. So sometimes I do think the players run from accountability depending on the situation, but there also are pure times where the media is just out to get them, and I think that's wrong too. So there's a fine line. There's a gray area in there, but I can't disagree with that statement. The media, the media. If I was a player, I could see why I'd be nervous to speak to the media. You know,
Like you said, I was literally going to say that it's a fine line because you have a job to do, and at the same time, you have to be conscious of the human aspect in it,
absolutely,
of the players, and having them be able to trust you. And
absolutely.
I think on the player side, though, you have to also think about this. They have a job to do. So
Yeah,
the headline may choose the most like biggest part of the interview that had nothing to do with the entirety of it.
yep,
Sometimes they have to do that to get the people to actually come read it. So it's a balancing act on both sides. The athletes got to understand, hey, they got a job to do. To your point, somebody recently, not going, I think if you watching this, you know what I'm talking about. Somebody recently messed up a 61 point triple double game. Yeah, I'm gonna have to talk about that. I'm gonna have to ask you about that. On the player side, the person then didn't talk to the media for 3 games straight. That's where, to your point, without the players, there aren't any media, but you got to have some accountability.
God,
You can't do stuff. You can't do stuff like that, and then, nah, I ain't gonna talk to the media for a couple of days.
absolutely.
It's a balancing act between both sides, and I think sometimes the players be forgetting that side. Like, hey,
Look, man. At the end of the day, players. I think, like I said, some of them are being oversensitive. I think some of them are prima donnas. It just is what it is. I mean, it makes sense though. When you're the best player, or you're one of the best players, you kind of get that diva moment. You're everyone. Everyone is treated fairly, but everyone isn't given the same amenities and the same that stuff isn't fair. I mean, I think it'll be odd if you're treating LeBron the same way you treat Rui or what I mean, or whoever. You know what I mean? I think it'll be odd. So not to name drop them, but there's so many players like that. Regardless of what I'm saying is though, it's just I think sometimes they get too privileged and they come to the media and they kind of want the media to overlook their mistakes. However, they want us to praise when they do amazing. You know what I'm saying? So again, it's just like you can't have your cake and eat it too, man. If you go out there and do something silly, he's not. That's not a gotcha moment. We're literally reporting you did something silly. That was your choice. No one else did it. You know. Now, I do think if someone's asking a question to persuade you to get a gotcha moment, which people do all the time, that's not okay either. That's you're looking for something, you're looking for a reaction. Things like that aren't cool. But like you said, I mean, it's perfect as well. It's they're both doing their jobs. So at the end of the day, it's like who's wrong, who's right. It just depends on what side of the fence you stand.
facts, and like you, it's a balancing act. Just point blank period. And like for the media, I've always said this: long as y'all talking about just the sport,
Yeah.
Hey, it's all fair game. If I don't end up talking about the person, the individual, and their
Yep.
family and race, and he's only good because he's white. Like, as long as we don't go that to
Yeah.
that route,
Yeah.
you feel me? That's where it's all good. You 3 for 14. I could talk about that.
Okay. You didn't play well. It is what
Eight
it is.
interceptions over the last 2 games. I can talk about that.
Come
Like,
on, man. Yeah, it's all
long
good.
as it's
It's all fair game. 100%.
for you, right? So I mentioned it at the beginning of the episode. She got game. What inspired you to start that, especially on the aspect of you're focusing on women's sports, which I have 3 sisters. They all play sports.
Yep.
We've talked behind the scenes of how much I value women's sports, and I think it needs to have more coverage.
Yeah.
You were ahead of the game. What inspired that?
Yeah, so I want to start by this. She Got Game. The founder of She Got Game is a gentleman named Ahmad Thomas. That's one of my closest friends. I became the president of operations probably about a year or two after he actually created it. We put our heads together. Realistically, during the pandemic, I was coming out of college. I was coming out of Rutgers, and I had all these internships. I had the Jets, I had the Mets. I believe in Jets, Nets, Mets, and I think I had the Giants. Like so, I pretty much had a pick. And coming out of college, obviously I graduated in 21, so the pandemic happened and it wiped out everything. So I caught myself kind of in limbo. Like I really didn't know what to do. I was still trying to put my name out there, trying to build reels and stuff. And what really happened was at the time he was just making highlight videos. He was making more so like really cool highlight videos of the Cavender twins and all these, top tier girls in high school about to head to college. And he was gaining some buzz. And from there we just put our heads together. He knew I wanted to be a reporter, what I was trying to get into. He was like, look, I kind of got a platform. I got girls. I was like, hey, look, it's something. We never envisioned it was going to be this until we realized that we have something. And essentially, how it just came apart, I mean, or at least how it unraveled, was I tell it all the time, a part of my story. I couldn't get in anywhere. I couldn't get into my own middle school and high school. I really couldn't get in anywhere. So I started at my local YMCA, and the only coaches and the only players who would let me cover them was the girls. Why? Because there's no one in the stands. There was no one. So, at the time I was like, hey, look, it is what it is. It's a boring game. I'm beyond. I didn't really have the passion for it, but that's how I came up. And eventually being around the game and really understanding, wow, this is actually really good basketball, especially if it's coached the right way. Um, I gained the love for it, and I respect the hell out of them now because I'll be honest, without them, and I admire them, because I look at our struggles very similar. Like they fought to get the recognition now. Like there's been plenty of women who's been studs and unbelievable players and athletes in their own right, and they've just been overlooked because they're women. I think it's nonsense. You know what I mean? I think it's crazy, but um, that was my break in. That's how I broke into the industry and covering high school sports, and then from there, covering from high school, Rutgers gave me a shot, and then from Rutgers, Seton Hall. Next thing you know, I'm in Princeton. Now I got all of Jersey, and then from there, doing that for a couple of years. Next thing you know, the Liberty gave me a shot. Now we're in the pros, and all these things kind of come, into fruition. But that's really where it came from. It really came from kind of two people putting our heads together. We're like, let's see where this goes. And eventually it turned into now we are one of the biggest um female female platforms, as well as just, a platform to share your story, to really have your full voice and really have it guided by nobody. It's not like the media is kind of playing games. It's more so it's your opportunity to share your story and really touch thousands and millions of people. It's been a pleasure, man. It's been a hell of a ride to really see. I get DMs and stuff from young girls and just even sometimes college players and professionals from women from Turkey, man. Like women in Egypt, women in all these players. I get DMs still in different languages, which is like it's unheard of, man. Like not me, what I mean. I never thought of that, and it's just really cool to see, man. Being at the McDonald's All American and just having these opportunities to be around these elite women. Um, it's just it's a different admiration, man. It's a different admiration, and I have a total different respect for those athletes, and I'm beyond grateful because without them, realistically, Woods is no longer, or She Got Game couldn't grow to what it is. Said by Woods would never be a thing, So, I give it all, and I give all the credit to them, man. And I'm really honored and happy I did jump on the wave. I will say that I've been covering them before. It was cool, man. I'll say that I was in them gyms when it was 2 to 3 people, in the stands, and there was no media. You would go to those press rooms, and it's just you, and all those girls will be really grateful. You know what I mean? I do think some of the boy athletes get a little privileged with that. They take media for granted a little bit, because just as much as they're important, we're important to the game as well. So, um, man, shout out to them, bro. Shout out to them, and I'm honored to be a part of She Got Game, and just just really happy to see where this is growing.
Man, I could relate to that too. Most of my interviews that I ever get are females. Are females. Some of my first ever interviews, if it wasn't my high school teammates that went pro or college teammates that went pro,
Yeah,
I couldn't get I couldn't get a response from a male athlete.
yeah,
I think it's dope too because most of them are more humble and more approachable
I agree.
than the male athletes. But shout out to them. Shout out to She Got Game and where it's grown. I know it's going to continue to grow bounds and leaps for sure. You've been in the game for a minute.
Yes, sir.
You dropped earlier that you and you talk to and you get advice and wisdom from Scoop B.
Absolutely.
And I know you have other mentors and people that you have conversation with. What's the best piece of advice that you received in the industry?
One of the best pieces of advice. That's tough, man, because I've had some great people talk to me, man. I'm gonna shout out my boy Marv Chambers. He's a vet. Marv Chambers. I'll never forget. It was my first college men's basketball game, and at least in a media role. I sat dead in front of Seton Hall. Seton Hall versus, I believe, Villanova, so that's a big rivalry game. Seton Hall loses, I believe. More of the story, I get the mic. I already have the question. I said it 3 times in my head. I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm nervous wreck. But I got the mic and I stuttered for the first 10 seconds of my question. I don't even stutter. I don't have a stutter. And I stuttered. And like the coach laughed, the players laughed, like the media room was laughing. This was like one of my first big opportunities. And I'll never forget Marvin Chambers grabbed me. He saw what it was. He grabbed me. He was like, "Hey, look, man, I could tell you obviously knew. I could tell you're a bit nervous." He's like, "I'll never forget." He said, "Next time when you grab the mic, act like you deserve to be in the room, or think you deserve to be in the room." And I asked him, "What do you mean by that?" He was like, "It's a confidence thing." He was like, "You could trick your own mind by believing in yourself when no one else does." And I'm like I said, playing sports, I'm used to that, but I never really pictured to utilize that elsewhere. And he said that, and I can honestly say, outside of that, I mean, a few slip ups here and there happens, but as far as like full stutters and just out of pure nervousness, has never happened again. To speak a little bit to Scoop B, man, he's giving me point like priceless game. On just how to be a better journalist. You know what I mean? I think he's seen potential in me. I think he respected me as a person more than anything, and he sees the potential that I may have not saw in myself. And he kind of guides me on being more of myself in my writing. And he's given me so many techniques and so many different things where he's like, you could become a better writer but not lose yourself. You don't have to lose yourself in your writing to become a better writer. You don't have to become a Times New Roman and just a robot typing. You could still be you. It's just a matter of being able to intertwine everything to make your sauce. Is exactly what he told me. He told me the only difference between me, you, him, and him is you have to find your sauce. Whatever you put in your sauce is only going to be your sauce. And once you get that, and you become confident in it, he's like, there's no one that could beat you. There's no one that could see it. He was like, and I'll be honest, he was like, you should always. He told me, and this meant a lot from Scoop. One, he told me he was proud of me, and then two, he told me, anytime I walk in a room, you're the best. And I was like, what do you mean? Because I was like, I'm in a room with you. Like, straight up. We was about to go in the present. I was like, what do you mean? He was like, you're the best. And he kept saying it. He just kept saying it. And I was like, God damn it, I am the best. And eventually, I bring a little swag. When you step on the court, when you know what I mean, you know what it is. Like, it's a swagger it brings, and it's I'm honored, man. I'm honored to have people believe in me that I respect. They respect me, and I think it helped. It just helps me. It's helped me grow in spaces that I personally didn't believe I belonged. And that's probably one of the biggest steps. When I joined the New York media, that's a real thing. That New York media that people joke around and talk about, it's overwhelming as hell. That New York media is no joke. When they're in the scrum and everyone's yelling over each other, and you gotta fight for a question, that's a real deal. You will drown out there if you don't know what you're doing, if you're not aggressive enough, if you don't demand a certain respect, you will drown out there. So kind of being prepared for those moments, to walk into those moments and come out victorious, I think was really important, man. And if you could do it in New York like anything else, you could do that damn thing anywhere, bro. So that's the God honest truth, bro.
Shout out to Mar. Shout out to Scoop.
Oh
Great
man,
advice.
OGs, OGs, man.
And for those that's watching, I'm not a journalist. I don't want to be a sports. It's some gems right there that you use in life, though. Confidence,
For sure.
confidence in who you are, and having that swagger, having that from what we talk about on the court, having that dog, and just knowing like, hey, I put the reps in. You may not know who I am, but
I'm,
I'm him. I'm
I'm
like that.
here. I'm here, bro. I'm
I
here.
put in the work.
You gotta show me, man. You gotta show me. And that's really what it is. I think a lot of these guys, and I think being so diverse has also helped me see that some of these guys with the big names and these great reputations aren't that. And it's kind of helped me see behind the curtain and to realize, oh, this guy's a regular guy. They may have the team behind them, they may have the right support behind them in the machine, but at the end of the day, man, a lot of these guys aren't that guy. And when you step into that space and you let your work speak for yourself, like I don't gotta say this stuff. When I walk in, whether you know me or you don't know me, my work, I always let my work speak for myself. I'll say that with anyone. Like, just how it was in basketball or football. Let's line it up. Let's do these 1-on-ones. Hey, look, man, you write yours, I'll write mine. Let's see what's going on. I'll put my work against anyone. So um, and that's how I feel, man. And it kind of takes away that fandom or that kind of like nervousness. It's just like, but that comes from consistency and hard work. It doesn't just like you don't just roll out the. Some people are cocky. That's just what it is. Some people have untouchable confidence, and kudos to them. But mine's come from just doing this 1,000 times and doing this and being respected by people and just elevating each year. So I'm blessed, man. I'm blessed, and that's really what it is. It's really what it is.
You just mentioned, and this will be our last question before we transition to the fourth quarter segment.
Okay.
You mentioned being diverse.
Yeah.
For somebody that you originally played basketball, football,
Sure.
how were you able to cover all different facets of sport? Were you always a fan of boxing and UFC and soccer? Were you always that knowledgeable on all sports? Or was a transition period when you got the opportunity to cover boxing, cover UFC, cover soccer, cover baseball?
Absolutely. Great question. Wonderful question. I think I this goes low key back to Scoop. I remember when I got to meet him, he told me try to be as diverse as possible because you never know where your opportunity to come from. A lot of people come in and they're only covering basketball and they're only covering football, which is fine. Or, they're only covering baseball, track, tennis, whatever. That's fine. But who's to say this soccer opportunity comes up or this hockey opportunity comes up and they want you or they're looking at you, but you don't got no experience or you don't know what you're talking about or, you know, um, and I never wanted to be that guy. I never wanted to be that guy that's given an opportunity and I fumble it because you got to live with that, and it becomes more of a lesson. So, to be honest, I just never wanted to be that guy. But to answer your question, as far as the knowledge, when I started covering hockey, I'll be honest, man. I've been to 3 hockey games before. I knew they fought. I knew they fought. But I didn't know offsides. I didn't know the penalty plays. I didn't know any of that stuff. And I kind of like anything else, you learn on the job. No one isn't really putting your arm over your shoulder and showing you everything. But luckily, I was an athlete. I had friends who was athletes I could rely on that played. One of my friends played at a high level, D1 hockey, and he kind of groomed me a little bit and kind of showed me the ropes. And just naturally being around it, you learn more. So I've learned more about soccer. I've learned more. Boxing, I was a fan of. I was always a fan of boxing. I loved Floyd growing up. A bunch of guys, Roy Jones. Like I really was into boxing. UFC was a little different, but I love Connor. Growing up, I was a big Connor guy. So some of these sports I kind of had my foot in. I'll be honest, but a lot of these sports I had no clue what I was covering when I was covering lax. I'm from Summit, New Jersey. That's the lax capital. They're literally number one in the nation almost every year in high school. They send all these kids out to the country. I didn't know a damn thing about lax. I was covering lax. I didn't know much about tennis. I covered there. One of the most interesting and one of the coolest opportunities I've had. Shout out to my younger sister. She performs in Wimbledon or not Wimbledon, excuse me, Westminster, excuse me, Westminster, which is a dog show. It's like the Super Bowl for dog shows. And I wanted to support her. I wanted to be there. I wanted to cover her. But literally, I had no clue. I had no clue what I'm doing at this dog show. It's nothing really you prepare for unless you're around that world. And to this day, it was one of my favorite opportunities, not only just to cover her, but also to be around all these cool dogs. All these dogs have stories, and some of these dogs are royalty, and it's crazy. It's a whole different world. But regardless, it was one of the coolest events I've ever been invited to, and it's just an absolute honor. So I say, as a journalist, try to diversify your portfolio. You never know when the opportunity is going to come, and more so, it just betters you as it betters you as a writer. It betters you as everything because you become more diverse. You become more that talented. You kind of make yourself a double-edged sword. I think when you kind of pigeonhole yourself in one thing, if that thing doesn't fall through, you're screwed, right? I think so. I do think all those things are important, but diversifying your portfolio will allow you to have more opportunities quicker.
Again, wisdom, knowledge, gems right there. Diversifying your portfolio and the importance of you're in these different spaces, but you put in the work. All right, I'm in this room with hockey. What can I do to learn the sport to be able to ask the right questions when I'm in these rooms? Fourth quarter segment. I like to eat. I love to eat. Every single guest I ask a food related question.
Of course,
One meal you could eat and not get tired of.
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go cowboy steak, bone in, medium. I'm gonna have it cooked medium. Spinach, cream spinach, sweet corn, and lobster bisque.
Oh, that's some good eats right there.
Come on, brother. Come on, brother.
That's
Nice,
some good eats.
a nice glass of rosé or something, depending on what the vibe is. You know what I'm saying? Nice glass of either rosé, some Josh, or whatever the case is. You know, Pizarro. Excuse me, Pizarro, I believe is the brand. But yeah, man, something like that. Something like that. I mean, you can't beat a well cooked steak, bro. You know what I mean? Like it's a little different, man. It's a little different. So.
My wife say that all the time. It be like if I'm not cooking and we get something to eat, she like, you always trying to order some steak. Don't matter where we getting it from, don't matter what type of food it is, if it's Mexican, if it's Korean, they got steak on the menu. What's type of steak they got on the menu?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. It's hard to
Let's
beat
figure it out.
it's hard to beat a good steak, my man. It's hard.
Facts. You mentioned it just earlier, so
Yeah,
wasn't on my list of questions, but being that you said that you were a fan of boxing growing up,
yes, sir.
Floyd, Roy Jones Jr.,
Yes,
who
sir.
are your favorite five boxers?
Favorite five. Okay, I'm gonna go no order, but Floyd. Floyd's in there for me. I got Pac-Man, Pacquiao, Manny Pacquiao. Growing up, Roy Jones. Roy Jones is in there for me. Um, got some sleepers in there, man. I really enjoyed. I don't. I really enjoyed Zab Judah. Like until Floyd actually dropped him, I loved Zab. I think he was really freaking good. And I mean, they're gonna kill me if I don't put Mike in there because I love Mike. I love Mike, bro. But I'm trying to think because I want to be authentic, man. Because growing up, Mike was a little past my. He's a little older.
Hmm.
Like, I didn't really get to witness Mike in his prime. You know what I mean? I didn't really get to witness
Yeah.
Mike at all. So I want to say Manny. I'm not gonna lie, Crawford's getting up there for me. Like I will say, obviously he's a modern day boxer,
Hmm.
but he's getting up there for me. I like Crawford. Growing up though, if I had to take him out, Bernard. I love Bernard too. Bernard was the man. Bernard Hopkins. He was the man, bro. He was the man. So who's that? Bernard, Roy Jones, Zab, Floyd, and Manny. Like those are probably my. At the time growing up, I love those guys, bro. I love those guys for sure.
Solid list right there. You covered the Giants. You covered NFL. The Giants have that number 3 overall pick. Who do you think they should draft?
Yeah, I believe the smart pick now because they doubled up. They doubled up on both quarterbacks. Now, granted, they got veteran quarterbacks. I don't know what their vision is there. Maybe they'll have them duke it out. Obviously, someone is going to fall the backup, so it doesn't make. It might make a lot of sense to draft a Shador because I know it's where a lot of people want to go. But now he's just sitting behind these two vets, and these two vets are really trying to compete. You know what I mean? They're trying to compete at a high level. They're not trying to groom and have a back. You know what I mean? So I don't know if it would be the best ideal fit. And you're New York. No one wants to see their number 3 pick in the draft sit for a year. You know what I mean? And this is New York. We know how they rush. Everything's rushed, and it's a very different type of media. So I don't think Shador is the right move now, especially the offseason moves. But what I do believe a good option for them is the kid out of LSU. The tackle, I believe, or yes, the tackle from LSU, I believe. I forget his name. I don't want to mess his name up, but the tackle from LSU, I think, is a perfect fit for the Giants. While they need to rebuild everything, I do believe they can start with that O line. And they have Andrew Thomas. They have some guys. They have some elite guys on there. Andrew Thomas is one of the best tackles in the league. But the thing about the LSU tackle, he's extremely diverse. He's extremely diverse. He played a little bit of guard. He played a little bit of center. And who's to say he won't be able to jump to the right tackle? He played a lot of left tackle and stuff, but who's to say he won't have the capability to jump to the right tackle? So I do think drafting him allows him to beef up the line and also give them a different type of diversity on the line that they haven't had in, let's just say, a very long time.
For those that's watching, he's talking about Will Campbell. Check out the tape.
That's my guy, Will Campbell.
Will
He's
Campbell,
phenomenal, man. He is.
a beast. You mentioned
Oh,
earlier the diversity of diversifying your portfolio with what you cover. What is your favorite sport to cover though?
hands down, a W. Hands down. It's not even close. Either women's college hoops, like I would probably be either it's women college hoops or the W. There's no in between. I love football to death. That's where obviously I grew up, and that's where I grew up on Brady and those guys. Diehard Pats fan. But where my passion lies now, I mean, some people may call me crazy, but at this point of my life, I'm going to probably a WNBA game before I go to an NFL game, unless probably a Super Bowl. Let's not get too crazy, but at this point in time of my career, I'm probably going to go to a W game versus NFL game. I'll live and die on that hill.
Hey, so speaking of women's college basketball, I would be remiss being that you covered Rutgers this past year. I don't know why I forgot to put this as one of the questions
Okay.
because this is big news for Rutgers that happened once the season was done. Keomi McMiller hit that transfer portal. Where do you think would be the best fit for Keomi? Because it didn't seem throughout the season it was probably the best fit with the team, maybe the coaching. There was a lot of things that went on behind the scenes. Where do you think will probably be best for Keomi?
Um, I'm gonna say this: Kiyomi was a phenomenal player to watch live. And I'll say this with my encounters with her: she was great. She's always respectful. She's really an kind person. It is unfortunate, like it didn't work out and stuff. But I would probably suggest for her caliber of player and her play style, it's hard to fit that in a system. It's hard to fit that in a UConn. It's hard to fit that because anywhere she goes that's really good, she's gonna have to be part of a system. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. Meaning, her game will have to get diminished. She will have to probably lesser her game for the betterment of the team. And I think between, I think it's a hard concept. I think it's a hard concept of a player of that magnitude, of that talent, and you're capable of so much more. I think it's kind of keeping a Porsche in the driveway, or keeping a Maserati in the driveway. So I think she does have to go to a team where she can have full reins. I think she has to go to a team where she can be the guy and they build around her versus being a key piece and having multiple key pieces with her. With that said, though, I think wherever she's going to go, she will be an asset. And no matter where she touches down, she will be not only a game changing player, but whatever university gets her is going to be the luckiest university in the world. I'm looking at Florida State for maybe. I can see a really good fit, if not anything, St. John's. And she'll be playing against some of the best competition in the ACC. From I believe that's the ACC, correct? With UConn and no Big East. Excuse me. I think
Big
that's
East.
Big East. I apologize. And she'll be playing some of the best talent in the Big East. Even Seton Hall, so I'll be able to still catch her in Jersey, Villanova, and a lot of these girls. So I do think that'll probably be a good look for her. Either St. John's or FSU is probably the top two landing spots I think where she could benefit the most.
Staying with women's basketball, who's the biggest threat to the Liberty repeating?
Damn, after all these moves, probably Indiana. Probably Indiana or Minnesota. I'm gonna go Indiana or Minnesota. Yeah,
Yeah,
Indiana. Indiana's made some power moves this year that makes you want to think twice a little bit. But we've made some power moves. The Liberty looked phenomenal, and I think we only got better. I think losing Benija for the year. I do think this will help in the long run, where she gets a full year recovery. She's not rushing anything back. But I do think this will be a great opportunity for Phoebe to step up. Johansson, I believe. I don't want to butcher her last name, but Johannes. She's unbelievable, man. That's 15, 20 off the bench. I do think we have a few key pieces that we have a few roster spots we still can fill. But I'm not gonna lie, man. I think we definitely got better. Tasha Cloud coming to New York. That's huge. I think that replaces Sloot. I think that gives us a diversity, helps Sabrina and them get a break off the court, and helps them put the ball in the hands of someone they trust, a veteran. I'm not gonna lie, man. I'm excited. I'm excited for this upcoming season, but I do think probably Indiana or Minnesota are probably gonna give us a run for our money.
1,000%. This W season coming up is going. I hope and pray that I'm able to be at one of these games to cover it, because this season coming up.
You'll be in there. I'll make sure you're in there. You're getting
this season. Appreciate it. This season coming up, bro. This offseason was it rivaled what we see in the NBA. It was so many. This person traded. This person free agent. You bring back Marine. You bring in Natasha Cloud. Just in New York alone, over in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
They looking ready to repeat. And Stewie is healthy.
Yeah.
Coming into the season, she got the little knee surgery that she needed. Yeah, bro.
I just caught Stewie at the McDonald's All-American game as well. Man, she looks healthy. She looks healthy. I mean, she looks healthy. She looks happy. She's in an unbelievable mind. Even Benija, I got to see Benija, talk to her a little bit. She's an amazing. Granted, obviously got the boot on or like the leg, the leg cast, but she's in high spirits, man, and she's excited for everything to come. So I think that's really what makes the Liberty special. It's the camaraderie. They're a real team. Like, this isn't. I want to say that first year we lost to the Aces, you could kind of tell they didn't really build that bond yet. They weren't a quote unquote team, but now I think they've built that culture from ground up. And credit to Sandy and those guys. It's an amazing squad. I'm excited. It's going to be a very fun season. John Quell's looking great. Over there in China right now. I'm excited, bro. I'm excited.
Facts. Is going to be a really, really fun season across the W. Last question before we get you out of here. Again, we appreciate you hopping on. John Armwood. Make sure y'all check him out. NBA Finals picks. West and the East. Who make it? Who wins it all?
East, I'm going to go Celtics. East, I'm going to either go Celtics or Cavs. They look good. They look damn good. But we do understand playoff basketball is very different. And I do think the Cavs, while they got some time now and they got some experience, I do think Boston's going to be a lot. I'm not gonna. I just think Boston and JT and those guys, I think they're a lot. So I do think Boston's gonna go back. And then the West, man, I'm not gonna lie, bro. It's a freaking. I mean, you got Joker. You got. I mean, I'm not counting Luka in them out. I don't think now, as a Laker fan, I don't really enjoy our depth. I don't think when it comes to playoffs, I don't think we have the depth. But I mean, I'm not counting LeBron and Luka out. You know what I'm saying? And I want to say, if I'm really thinking, man, I gotta put OKC in there. I gotta put OKC. I also because people are gonna look at this like, oh, he's crazy. Golden State deserves to be in there just off their reputation and how great Curry is. But I think OKC is at a different level right now. Personally, I think OKC is at a different level, and I think Shy and them, I think they learned their lesson last year. I think they've gotten only better from it. And listen, man, I think they could do something. I think they could do something deep.
NBA playoffs is around the corner. I believe next week or the week after that is the end of the season. And we got April 15th, 17th, I believe, is the play-in game. So it's a lot. It's a lot coming. I know for those that's listening and watching, definitely tap in with John because he's going to have content come. This is the Mecca. This is the Mecca of sports right now. The W season starting soon. You got NFL draft, NBA playoffs around the corner. Baseball is back.
WNBA draft. Yeah,
it's going to be content after you're going to want to.
this is the best. This is the best time for sports, man. Everyone knows April. Middle April. There's a week. There's a couple weeks in April you get to relax. That's kind of your recovery period. But toward that down stretch of April into May, and then it just it's a lot going on, man. Playoff hockey started. You know what I mean? Like it's a lot of things as this thing goes down. So like you said, man, you can follow me. You can reach me at Seb by Woods on Instagram. My Twitter is J_Armwood908. And you can follow Sh3GotGame as well. That's where we put a lot of our stuff out. And again, man, you're doing great things. We talk about this stuff all the time. You and your team. Um, it's phenomenal to see you guys grow as well. So I'm grateful for the opportunity, man. And anything I could do to help or anything I could do to support, brother, I'm here, man. Big Jersey for sure.
Yes, sir. But y'all know the vibes over here on the Bench Mob Ent podcast. If you stay ready, you don't got to get ready. Bench Mob, we out. Peace.